Yes guys, sadly it's true. The next C63 will lose its V8 and it will be a 4-cylinder hybrid. I can sense that you're pissed off, I'm pissed off too, and to be honest, we are in good company because according to the press, when this news was thrust upon AMG CEO Tobias Moores in a board meeting with mothership Mercedes-Benz, he stormed out of the meeting with a few choice words like, "You have no." So we're in good company, and when I heard of it personally, I thought, let's just burn the thing with fire.
Fatality.
That being said, when you're faced with such a big problem and such a big challenge, it allows for very interesting things to happen when you have to make up for it. So AMG have now doubled down on this next generation of C63 in the 206 model of C Class, and today we're going to explore the full future of this, the new 206 C63. Today's video on the new C63 is sponsored by The Last Coat. Guys, it's so great to have our old sponsor, The Last Coat, back again for another episode. I've been using their main product, so much. You can see how much I've used already. It's been brilliant for just quick detailing the car with a very hydrophobic surface. I also showed you guys on Instagram what the soap is like. It's some of the best automotive soap I've ever used. It just stays foamy all the time. But now they've got a new product, which I want to show you. And it is called Black Ice. Now this is a ceramic coating that lasts for 12 months and it's absolutely brilliant. I've applied it on only this half of the C63 Black Series' bonnet, and I want to show you the difference in hydrophobic quality. So if we leave that there, nothing at all. Put in the exact same spot on the other side, slidey. Can't recommend their products enough. Try this one as well. The old code RBRTLC20 still works. Link is in the description as well. That's RBRTLC20. Support us sponsors, guys. And now back to the episode. Truly, the C63 is now a household name amongst all petrol heads, and it's thanks to this fantastic combination of a small body plus a large, ludicrous engine that it has such a special place in all of our hearts. And this news of this new 206 C Class having a 4-cylinder rather than V8 has taken not only the AMG community by storm, but the petrol heads in general, and it's really threatening the place that that car has within our hearts. Now, as far as the standard car is concerned of the new 206, it's based on an updated MRA platform at Mercedes. It's going to probably be slightly longer, a bit more spacious inside to separate it from something like the A sedan. Inside, we're going to have a major tech increase, taking a huge amount of influence from the brand new S Class, including a brand new tablet-like, Tesla-like interior within the middle, which we will have to see how that fares. But of course, the biggest news to come out of the W206 rumour mill has been of the AMG versions being forced to be 4-cylinder. Now, of course, across the board, in every car manufacturer and every large car, we are seeing downsizing happening in every area. But this is especially hurtful for both AMG and AMG customers for their main bread and butter car, which is the C63. And to really understand why it's so hurtful, we need to have a very quick glance back through history of both AMG and C-AMGs to understand why we hate this. So first of all, we can go back to the first ever AMG sold directly by Mercedes-Benz, which was also a C-Class. That was the C36 AMG. This used the inline 6 from a C280 repurposed by AMG after factory and then sold on. This was quickly followed by a C43, and this was with a thunderous 4.3 litre V8, which sounded absolutely brutal. This was the first AMG to be built at factory rather than reappropriated later, and it was easy to see why customers loved this idea of a crazy large engine within a small bodied car. This was built, of course, to then fight the M3, and in its own way it did pretty well. After this car came the C55 with again another thunderous V8, 362 brake horsepower from the V8 found in the CLK55 AMG. This car was the first time that AMG used brand new sheet metal for the front end, giving it a unique front again, which is a tradition carried up until today in the 205 C63 as well, with a completely unique and wide front end. But it was really after this car that the Icon came. And we're talking about that axe murderer with headlights, the W204 C63 with the 6.2 litre naturally aspirated beastly engine out of the SLS. This was a tire ripper, an earthquake inducer. It was the most amazing super sedan we ever saw at that time, because it just rewrote the rules of what you could fit into such a small car. Of course, the final version of this was the C63 Black Series, which I consider to be the company's main brand icon in terms of infamy. Many a trouser was never left the same again, and truly even the legendary M3 has never really recovered from the entry of this beast. It was called a C63, reviving that 63 name tag from AMGs of past, and it was a car that really deserved that name, and I think we all feel that even to today. So when news of the next C63 came that it would ditch that engine for a 4-litre bi-turbo, just like today, there was a big uproar and people were so worried. Luckily for us, AMG know how to make engines that perform and sound fantastically. And this 205 C63 is by no means any exception. It sounds absolutely brilliant, and it drives even better with an absolutely sweet chassis, great low-end torque, an incredible engine with a natural response and no lag, and a simply thrilling soundtrack makes this, for me, my pick of the bunch out of the lot. I think it's a great all-rounder, despite the fact that I have the Black Series. The 205, I absolutely love this car. Then came the facelift, and many of us who bought this car were a bit disappointed to find that it lacked a lot of pops and bangs thanks to the EU regulations, and we will get onto that point later. But despite that, still quite a thrilling car. After this was due a send-off, a C63R, a final V8 car to bring some of that flavour of the Black Series back into the 205 generation. Sadly, completely cancelled by mothership Mercedes-Benz, probably because of budget going towards EVs, regulations, etc. Whatever the reason was, they essentially cancelled what was probably going to be their greatest car ever, in my opinion. A real damn shame. So now we can begin to understand how the C63 has enjoyed the infamy that it has. It's this silly combination of having a large, ludicrous engine inside of a small car that the customers love so much. And yes, while something like an M3 CS could perhaps do things more clinically, nothing gives a petrolhead a bigger orgasm than having a large and stupid engine inside of a small car that sounds so bloody brilliant. Now, this is again one of the three main reasons that AMG themselves cite that their customers even buy their cars. Sound being number one, design and performance. So by their own admission, in this, the new 206 C63, we're missing one of those entire branches altogether. And there's some huge changes coming into this car that we have to discuss now. So let's get to the meat of it, shall we? And start with the engine news. Out goes the V8, and in comes the M139 4-cylinder engine from the latest A45S. Now this is a good start as any, because this is the most powerful 4-cylinder production engine currently in the world, producing 421 brake horsepower in the S models of those cars. The engine was completely rebuilt from the ground up and designed in a way to deal with the main problem to do with a small engine producing high power, and that is efficient cooling. No doubt in preparation for the higher power that needs to be produced in these new 63 cars. Unlike the A45S, which has its engine mounted transversely like most front-wheel drive cars, this C63 will continue to have a longitudinal engine mounting, just like the cars of old. Now, British mag Autocar reports that this engine will also receive tech and learning from the AMG 1 hypercar. Allegedly, the AMG F1 Brixworth team have worked with AMG to create a brand new turbocharging setup to include an electric motor that's going to help with power, reducing lag, and helping with energy recuperation, which is set to take this M139 engine, which is already epic, to the next level. Now, of course, this is going to be linked very much to the hybrid element of this car. I expect there to be a boost in both brake horsepower and torque, as we've seen in the 53s and the GLE 63S, via an electric starter alternator between the engine and the gearbox, providing a boost. Though I theorize that there may be a few other measures in terms of hybridization, and we are going to theorize those later in the video, so stick around for that. Now, the other huge change, which is a lot more interesting for us, and is probably the first positive thing to come out of this for me, is that this is going to be the first four-wheel drive C63, keeping in line with now the new RS4 and the upcoming M3. So just like the new E63S and the A45S, expect a drift mode to come with this car in the first ever C63S 4MATIC Plus. Of course, we can expect some big power gains as well and performance gains. I'm going to theorize what they are near the end of the video, so stick around for that later. So these are some big changes. So we have to look through what negatives and positives we can draw from this. And I want to start with the first main negative, which is of course sound. As we discussed at the start, sound is so important for the C63 and for AMG customers in general, when AMG themselves say it's one of the 3 main reasons that they even buy their cars. But to be fair to AMG, it's not just the fact that this is a 4-cylinder engine, it's more to do with the extremely stringent EU noise regulations that every year demand that cars be even lower in their decibels when driving past or at a standstill. And this is all done in the so-called name of our health, which is complete bollocks, let's be honest. Emissions, yes, we're all for reducing emissions, but this sound thing is a complete red herring, and it's just pushed by the noise Nazis in Europe, and it's a real shame because this car could still sound fantastic as a 4-cylinder if they were left to do what they do best, and that's create a really good soundtrack like the old A45 had. Sadly, we don't have that. And these noise regulations are so stringent and so difficult to deal with that even if this new car had a V8, guys, it would still sound like complete shit, because the amount of mufflers, the sound would have to still be so low that it really negates what configuration engine you have before all of those mufflers. And we saw this, I can't give you a better example than the R8 V10 facelift that we tested last year. How weak that sounded despite being a natural V10 engine. It's such a shame. Right, so it's one big negative, a massive part of the C63 experience destroyed immediately. So AMG are going to have to up their game in every single other area. So let's get on to every other area. Let's get on to the positives. And we must start first with the engine. Now, of course, a 4-cylinder engine is that much lighter than a V8, but of course the added hybrid bits and the batteries, etc., that will go into this will make that weight saving a negligible figure in my opinion. But what it will give us is better weight distribution, pushing the weight away from the front, further lower and to the back of the car, which means better weight distribution, better handling and sharper steering in the next C63. So that's one big positive. Next, 4MATIC Plus, come on, it's a huge benefit. It's going to make the C63 for the first time ever an all year, all season car and make us enjoy it just like we have the lovely GLC 63S, but in then a saloon, coupe or cabriolet form. Now, this is going to be a big boon for customers, and of course we're going to get that much more grip and performance gains that we're going to discuss later on as well. Now, the drift mode that this will bring along could have the same application on the axles like in the E63, or if we're talking AMG One learning, as this car has some of, perhaps they'll go that route with the car, where the front axle has electric help and the rear wheels are driven by the engine. I guess we'll have to wait and see which route AMG take. Now, in terms of performance, I want to make a few predictions here. I think we're going to have more horsepower than the previous car, mainly to be a selling point of this car. I'm thinking around about 520 brake horsepower in the full-on S model. I also think that we're going to have more torque. I think it will go up from 700 to maybe 750 Newton meters. And I think a massive boost in the 0 to 60 figure, probably somewhere around 3.5 seconds, which is going to make this car an absolute beast on the road. So performance is going to be really exciting. Now, of course, there's a hybrid element as well, and all of that EV stuff coming into this, including the energy recuperation, could mean that we may even get an EV mode for very short distances. But at the very least, what we can expect is massive gains in terms of fuel economy, which is something you never associate in the past with the C63. The other benefit of the hybrid side, as we saw in the 53 cars, is you get a massive initial torque and power boost with no delay at all, very much an EV response. And it's even more in this car because we expect the hybrid system to give that much more horsepower versus the tiny amount that you get in the 53s. So that again is going to make the offline acceleration pretty brutal and the day-to-day use very enjoyable. Next, we have to come on to design, because historically C63s have been infamous for having aggressive design. And as we said, out of the 3 main reasons that people buy AMGs, we've ticked off performance, and now design, I think AMG will double down on just to make up for that difference of not having the great sound. So what are they going to do with this 206? Well, we can already see that the Pan Americana or the AMG specific grille is seeping through even on the lower models and what I expect on the final C63 as well. But I think they're going to go a bit crazy. I think it's going to have a unique front end treatment. I think that they're going to perhaps even go for wide arches on the rear on the sedan this time, as well as the front, just to give it a more intimidating look. I think the rear is pretty easy to guess. We can see those kind of E-Class, new S-Class style lights peeking out of the camo. And of course, you'll have the classic quadrupedal AMG pipes coming out of the car as well. It's set to be a pretty aggressive looking car, even in the saloon, which has historically been a pretty tame looking car versus the coupe. Now, let's talk about the next C43. Today's car is nothing like its elder brother C63. It's a V6 and it's a 4MATIC car. But the next car is due to have a lot more in common with the C63 elder sibling. I think it's also going to have a 4-pot, a similar version to the C63 one, but machine built rather than one man, one engine. And I think it'll have none of the hybrid element within this car. I think it'll get horsepower close to maybe 400 brake. And I think it'll have a rear axle with more power going to it than the car today. We don't know whether it's going to be called a C43 or a C53, but we can see that the design of the car is already being amped up with the AMG grille peeking through here in the spy shots, and generally a much more aggressive front end. You still got the 4 pipes on the rear, as we find in today's car. So we will have to see what this winds up being, but a lot closer to the C63 and being more of a C63 light than today's car is. So guys, that's all I know on the new C63. As far as my own feelings on the matter, it sounds like a great C Class AMG, but I really think that it needs to be renamed, because in my mind, a C63 is a totally different dish to this. Sound is such a big element of that. And while this is sounding like a great C Class AMG, the C63 was another breed altogether. But look, we'll have to see what this car is like in the future. And I really want to hear your thoughts and views on this, guys. So hit the comments, let's have a discussion about this and see how we feel about the future of the C63. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe and share it amongst your petrolhead friends. And I will see you again soon. There is lots of C63 content coming in terms of the old cars. So you've got some V8 fun to look forward to here at Remove Before Race. See you guys next time.